All right. So happy early. The eclipse is on the 27th. We're gathering on the 22nd. So we're 5 days ahead of schedule here. Folks are still coming in. I'm going to slowly get started. I'm going to start to share my screen here. Here we go. All right. Hopefully you can all see that. Um, yeah. Thank you everybody for being here today. And if anybody's joining for the first time, even though this is a two-part situation, that doesn't really matter. The first day, the first gathering, we were focusing on the Lion's Gate and the solar eclipse. Now we're going to focus on obviously the lunar eclipse in Pisces, but they're all kind of part of an energetic that is absolutely ongoing for the next 6 months. And I just kind of want to say at the top that eclipse season, in my experience, is absolutely a process. So it's not like we need to have it all figured out today or by the 27th. Um, I feel like this is just a really nice time for us to begin to entertain some of the themes. So I like to kind of just start with what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be talking about the astrology of the upcoming Pisces eclipse. We're going to be moving into some teachings about working with Rose, Lincoln's Rose, and we're gonna venture our way into making incense. And incense is one of my favorite things to do as a ritual because not only are you using your hands and you're able to infuse into what you're making with your own energy, but we're going to work just with Rose, but there's just a myriad of ways that you can start to work with herbs and incense if that is something that you're inclined to do. So I just kind of wanted to set the stage and give us a look back. We just met regarding the Lion's Gate and the Leo solar eclipse, as I said. And I think it's worthwhile for us to really be present in the process of what's unfolding in our world and in our lives individually and collectively. And some of us may have had some absolute insights. Maybe for others, it's a little bit more foggy, and there's no right way to move through an eclipse. And I just want to say that, within this lunar circle, one of the reasons I love working with one herb per lunar circle. Let me make sure I everybody on mute so I'm not echoing. It's just a really nice way to like really take a full cycle and enter into a relationship with a particular plant. And so with that, let's jump right in to what's coming up here on the 27th. The Pisces lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses differ energetically than solar eclipses. Just in general, there's two parts to the energy of an eclipse. There's whether it's a lunar or a solar. There's also what node it's honing in on, what node it's a north or south node eclipse. So whatever node is near the moon is kind of telling us something about those energies. So we had the Leo solar eclipse, South Node. That was interesting because solar eclipses invite us to begin something new, but South Node was talking about our past. And here we have a lunar eclipse, North Node, which is equally interesting because it's still, lunar eclipses are often about realization and maybe release, but North Node is absolutely about where we're headed. So both of these hold this beyond polarity, beyond linearity energetic for us. And if we think about what a full moon does, which is what happens during a lunar eclipse, it's an illumination, it's a realization. It's helping us to bring awareness to some patterns that may have been unfolding in our world. And if we think about what Pisces does, we'll get to a deep dive in that in the next slide. But Pisces is about, excuse me, compassion and intuition and dreams and spirituality. And I think throughout this eclipse season, especially throughout this year, there's not really an energy of forcing anything. It's about, especially with Pisces, Pisces, is mutable feminine water ruled by Neptune. So it's about surrender as much as it is about embracing change. And I think that one of the things we can consider is sometimes our greatest growth might come from not trying harder, but maybe just allowing something to gently unfold, whether that's completion or starting something new, and really working with the flows of the energy. So I mentioned that Pisces is mutable feminine water, and every sign has a cardinal, mutable, or fixed energy. Mutable is as it sounds, it's malleable, it's able to shapeshift is one of the words, but it's something that can move and flow. And water is a wonderful energy to have as a mutable energy. And I feel like Pisces, as the last sign of the zodiac, it's one of its hallmarks for me, where it's about compassion, it's about emotion, it's about intuition, but it's a sign of wisdom. It's a sign of culmination of all the signs of the zodiac. And it's a sign of, if we have been really working with the energies, then we have this wisdom to draw upon. And I would sense that all of us here are interested in working with the energies. So I think that this is a really exciting time for us. The idea that there's wisdom that of everything that has come before. And it's really fitting for a lunar eclipse, actually, because it's inviting us to really intuitively and with deep wisdom release things that no longer serve, and open up to a next chapter. So I really kind of want us to just sit for a second with this notion of, where are we being invited right now to trust rather than to control? And just take a breath into that question. I didn't put it on this slide. I apologize. But, where are we being invited to trust versus feel like we, in our linear brain, are in everything's under control? And I think we all kind of know that control is an illusion itself, right? So just let that question kind of settle. We'll have the opportunity at the meditation to dive a little bit deeper into that. But I want to touch now that this is a full moon and a lunar eclipse. So solar eclipses are always at new moons, lunar eclipses are always at full moons. And if we think about a realization or a manifestation or a completion that is something that happens during a full moon, maybe it's releasing a habit that I'm getting the sense of, it's patterns that are operating underneath the surface for us. And they might come to light about something that we've been running, very likely on autopilot or automatically or subconsciously. And I think it's really important for us to think about, if we're letting go of a pattern, it's not a loss. It's an invitation to what's next. And so before we kind of shift into how this impacts us individually, I'm going to stop my share and see if anybody has any questions about that, any themes that you might want to share. I felt like taking a little bit less time on the eclipse, only because I spoke for an hour and 15 minutes in the podcast about it, but I'm happy to answer any questions. We're going to look at our birth charts personally next. So before we kind of shift gears, does anybody have anything to share about, or to question about, what a lunar eclipse in Pisces might mean? All right. Well, with that, we're going to kind of shift. Oh, Eve, yeah, what's up?
Hi,
Hi.
Lisa.
Hi.
Thank you.
So good to see
Good to see you too. I'm really excited and thank you for bringing in the rose energy. There's a beautiful rose garden in the place where I'm staying, and I feel I'm having a special connection with the roses. So thank you for that.
you. Oh, I love it. It's amazing.
And my question for you is, there's so much in this eclipse, right? Your podcast was incredible, and what really just piqued my interest and intuition was the Mars aspect. Could you speak a little bit more to that? That felt like something that I should be aware of.
Yeah. Let me find the chart for this eclipse and share it so that we can all kind of I'm going to share this chart, and if you don't know what it means, just don't look at it. But if you do, if you're interested in starting to learn about it, then look at it. So this chart isn't going to answer the question, but I think it'll kind of help orient us towards what Eve's question is. So this is for the August 27th full moon. As you can see, we have the moon. This clock face is for me. All the aspects are going to be the same, but these aspects might tilt around the clock face, but still hold the same positions relative to each other, depending on where you're at. If you're somewhere near the Pacific coast, this is probably similar for you. But we have a north node eclipse, as you can see up here where I've highlighted. That's a north node that's within a few degrees of the moon. Um, and so the Mars aspect is particularly interesting. Here's Mars down here in this chart, and Mars is conjunct Sirius in the sign of Cancer. And that is a unique situation for Mars, especially, excuse me, during times of transformation that we're moving through, right? Because Mars is most at home in the sign it rules, for example, fire sign Aries. And so Mars wants to charge, Mars wants to move, Mars wants to go. Challenge with Mars is not to get too hot, not to get too angry, not to get too reactive. Mars in Cancer is a very different energy. Conjunct Sirius is a very different energy. And it's at the apex of this T square here. If you look on this chart, you can see a red triangle that involves Saturn in Aries and Venus in Libra. And those two aspects are at the base, and they're kind of moving. There's friction in a T square, let's just say that. And oftentimes you can look to the apex of that for maybe a potential outlet of what that friction would be. So before I get to what Mars and Sirius means, I want to address the bottom of that T square. And so we'll start with Saturn in Aries, because as I mentioned, Mars rules Aries. So Aries energy is operational here for two reasons, because Mars is involved and because the sign Aries is involved. And Saturn in Aries is interesting because that's going to slow down the hotness potentially, because it's going to bring in this notion of karma and notion of what's real and what's sustainable in Saturn's best rendition of itself. And this is about our own personal identity often because it's Aries. So there might be a challenge around how we, or some friction. And I don't mean that friction means door closing, don't do it, you're wrong. This is about those subtle energies helping us to redirect something into something that's more optimal. So this does point to very personal experience. And so, Saturn in Aries is reminding us that kind of we are the person that's responsible for our karma and our energy. And it's interesting to have it in direct opposition. That's what this is. It's a direct opposition, Saturn in Aries and Venus in Libra. You can see red line. They're 180 degrees from each other. And, Venus is very much at home in Libra. Libra is one of the signs that she rules. And that's really bringing in this notion, absolutely, of justice and balance and karma and harmony and love. And so maybe there's a little bit of friction between our ideals around those things and our ability to um, figure out, manifest that, put that into the world. And so this is also saying it's okay if there's some friction there. Because let's remember what friction is. It's not a stop sign. It's an invitation to work with the energy. And the way through that is at the apex, which brings me back to the question about Mars, conjunct Sirius. I love looking at the outer planets, and I love, you guys know, I love the trans-Neptunian objects. I love all the stuff that people ignore because it's too small or too subtle. Because for me, I feel like there's a lot of wisdom there. And we just had Sirius active during the Lion's Gate, if we remember. And so Sirius is once again active here for us. And I think it's really with Mars conjunct in Cancer, inviting us into maybe a more compassionate version of our action, but it's absolutely inviting us to own and be courageous and move as we feel. But Sirius is bringing in a higher octave of intuition and energetic understanding, and maybe even kind of, if you're into that stuff, the star intelligence. Instead of it just being about the mundane world, this T square is about, even though it's involving personal planets Mars and Venus and interpersonal planet Saturn, there's something very cosmic about, like an otherworldly, about where we are and how we're navigating these times. So I think the challenge here with that T square and with Mars is for us to remain open to our intuition and continue to lean in our intuitive knowing and to trust it because we're not through a transformation yet. We're in the middle and there's still lots to come and there's lots to unfold. And how do we know what is true? The only way we know what is true and real is within our own sense of what's real and true. And I think that's the message of Mars here, which is owning ourselves in this physical world, but doing so with a tether to the stars, as Sirius reminds us. So I hope does that answer your question, Eve? That was a little bit long-winded.
Yeah, that was so beautiful. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. I thank you for helping me. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to bore them. I just talked for an hour and a half about this before, but I'm glad that really landed. So good. Yay. Okay. So let's kind of let's look now at that was the chart for the eclipse. So I'm gonna pop into the chat. I think most of you guys, does anybody need a link to get their birth chart, to get access to their birth chart if you want it right now? Go ahead and let me know. I can put that link. Actually, this is a little app that I built, but you guys know this is the public version. So if you need to find your birth chart, I'll put this link into the chat. But hopefully you can know, or you can just sit back and listen and look at this later. But we're going to transition to um, right now is how this eclipse is potentially impacting us individually. And I'm going to do what I usually do, but I'm also going to start to weave in a little bit more nuanced interpretation of how we look at aspects and transits. This is a whole other astrology level 2 course that I'll eventually roll out. But let's look first. This is the member portal for those of you guys that are in the Lunar Herbal Alchemy Circle. But for those of you guys that are joining today, this will be, I'll put this somewhere where you can to the Pisces eclipse through the 12 houses. Pisces eclipse, as you saw in that chart, was about 4 degrees and 56 minutes or something of Pisces. So it's roughly 5 degrees, but if there's an orb there. So you might look at something a little bit before 2 to 8, but maybe you look at a little bit larger orb if you want to. And you're just going to look to see what house that that energy, that alignment is falling in. And the first thing we do, the most mundane thing that you can do, and when you're looking at how a transit might affect you, is to look at what house it is landing in. So this transit is the eclipse. And if we're wondering how this eclipse might impact us, the first thing we can look at is where it lands in our birth chart. So when you find that your eclipse, this energy of around 4 or 5 degrees Pisces is in the first house, that means it's gonna hit on the themes of your first house, and that's about your identity. And I'm gonna kind of lightly move through this because I want to make sure we have time for any questions. But I'll have this is here I put, instead of asking who you should become, asks who the eclipse is inviting you to say, what do I no longer need to be? And there's a reflection question about that. So if we keep going, if this energy is landing in your second house, that's about values and self-worth. So there might be some themes around those things, finances, personal values. And again, this is a North Node lunar eclipse. So we're simultaneously being invited to realize and release, as well as remember why we're here, why our soul came into this body and this planet in this lifetime. Third house is the house of communication, also sometimes called learning. So I put here kind of patterns because one of the things that it seems to me is that there might be something beneath the surface here that's been operational for a while that this eclipse might just be like, oh, here's a couple 3D confirmations that whatever's running is going to show itself and make itself known. So this might be a communication pattern or a thinking pattern if this is in your third house. If somewhere between 2 and 8 degrees Pisces is in your fourth house, we're talking about This is an ancestry house. This is about home. I also put here emotional freedom. So this is about family patterns and emotional roots. And maybe there's some kind of healing in our relationship to home or our family or, immediate ancestors. Ancestral can mean a couple different things. It could also just mean things and places you're connected to across lifetimes. Fifth house, this is a house, our house of creativity. So maybe this is going to say, I put here, maybe just be willing to be joyful without being productive. I was thinking about something that might be running through the surface beneath us. And this might be a little bit biased by me, but I feel like that's something for me is, if I'm not productive, why am I having fun? And this is really an opportunity to have joy for its own sake. If it lands in your sixth house, this is your house of habits. It's ruled by Virgo, daily life, well-being, routines, as Virgos want, might come into view. So there might be, and I would say instead of striving for perfection, as is part of what Virgo does, this is inviting us to find things that feel sustainable and compassionate and life-giving. And maybe there's one small adjustment that comes into your awareness that is ready to be adjusted, released, or renewed. Seventh house, I put here the house of relationships, partnerships that moves beyond romantic, but it's generally like a one-on-one energetic. And so maybe there's a dynamic that is becoming present for you that's just ready to be released. And I think if we kind of look with this wider lens, peripheral vision, what are a couple of the themes that might pop? They don't have to pop on the 27th. They might just make themselves generally aware, they make themselves known by the charge that we feel about them. Eighth house, if this energy of 2 to 8 degrees Pisces lands in the eighth house of your birth chart, this is the house of transformation. And so this is a really deeply healing placement. This might invite vulnerability or a really deep sense of trust or some emotional healing. And I would say that instead of resisting, there's this understanding of release and transformation. And, really, I think for all of us, it's trusting that there's something bigger than us that is surrounding us and moving through us, and that we are the conduit for that earth star energy. Ninth house is the house of meaning and perspective. It's ruled by Sag. It loves exploration. So this is about your spiritual path. This is about maybe even an old story that's ready for a broader perspective. Um, 10th house is always about career and purpose. It's near the midheaven. So this is about your public life, your vocation. And here I think it's interesting. So instead of saying, I think we're also trained to say, who am I? What do I call myself? What's my elevator pitch about what I am in the world? I think this time, for all of us, but especially if this is landing in your 10th house, this is about less about being beholding to the things that we have been trained that we need to be attending to, and more about how what we're doing is really in alignment with our North Node, our soul's purpose, our deepest values. This is in your 11th house. This is about community, collaboration. Um, Maybe there's some things that naturally kind of just drift away while new things float in. And I would kind of I said here, trust that your community evolves as you do, because we're in the middle of this. And it's really come through to me a fair amount of times. It's not the time for us to say, that's it. I have it figured out. Blah, bitty, blah, bitty, blah. We're done. We're not done with this yet. And we're never going to be done, right? But especially with this transformation. And then if it lands in your 12th house, this is the house of the mystic or mysticism. So I put here inner life and spirit. And this is maybe even the most natural home for Pisces because dreams, intuition, meditation might become really meaningful for you. And so I would say pay attention to those. So that's the first thing that I think we can look at if we're thinking about how might this eclipse impact me individually. But there's another thing that we can start to look at, and I'll teach on this in the future, but I wanted to just swing the door open for it here. So we can look at around 5 degrees of Pisces or 2 to 8 degrees here, but we can also look at the signs that are kind of aligned with Pisces in the chart energetically, and that would be Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius. And what you would look at there in those signs is whether or not there are any planets that are in those signs or celestial bodies that are in those signs. Because the axis of this eclipse is lighting up each of those signs, if there is a physical planet in that particular sign, it makes sense that it would maybe make itself more thematically known. That's kind of all I really want to say about it. But I kind of just want to say that there might be a theme that these themes of these eclipse might also it might you might want to bring in what that planet is doing in your chart. And then I kind of just put at the bottom of this that this is an ongoing thing. So does anybody have any questions about that um, particular teaching? I can put this up as a resource. I know we're kind of running through it pretty quickly here.
Lisa,
Yes, Prata.
when you say what is a planet, I forget how you said it, but something like what is a planet doing in your chart?
Yeah. What do I mean?
What do you mean? I mean, of course they're in your chart and they have a job, but
Yeah, I'm trying to be efficient and I kind of am.
so let me give you an example.
Okay.
I've got Neptune at 1 degree Scorpio.
Okay.
So I get that Neptune may be activated. Is that within the parameters? Nope, I guess it isn't. So Uranus is 2 degrees Leo. So I get that Uranus would be activated, but I don't know if that's the same thing as what is it doing in my chart?
Well, we're specifically looking for planets that are in the signs of Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sag. And
Okay,
and so and those are all Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, and Sag are all in one simple way to say why they're activated right now is because they're mutable signs. And
I see.
as I mentioned, mutable energy is something that Pisces carries, but these are the other signs that carry that. And so I guess what I was kind of just saying is those planets might be highlighted um, in terms of whatever their placement was in your birth chart. Maybe
If they're in those signs,
if they're in those signs, would it be
I
helpful?
see.
Yeah, I can give you my own example of my own birth chart, but I don't want to talk about me. But if you want me to, I can. Yeah, and maybe I don't know. Vanessa has her hand raised. I don't know if she has an answer to this, but does that make sense? I didn't. I kind of hopped over that a little bit more
So
quickly.
it sounds like it isn't where are the planets, it's more in those four signs.
What do they
Are
do?
there planets in those degrees? And if so, those are the ones that are activated.
Yes,
Okay, that makes more sense.
yes. Okay. And this is not Vanessa. Somebody else has their hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, it's Teresa.
Oh, hey,
Um,
Jessica. Nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you. Nice to be here. Um, so I don't have anything in Pisces on my birth chart, but I do have three planets in the 12th house, all in Scorpio. How does that play out? Because I know that's the rule, how Pisces is the ruler of the 12th house, and the moon, as you mentioned, is in the 12th house. So
Well, the moon is in the 12th house for
the,
where I live.
um,
So the moon might not be in the 12th house for where you live. There's a couple different ways to talk about, but there is another way to think about this as you're honing in on is if Pisces is ruling the 12th house, that also is another way that the charge, if we think about, maybe this is a better way to talk about this. All the planets have their own hum, right? And there's a specific hum of this chart, and there's specifically what's going on with the moon. And so we're trying to see what hum is being pinged in our own chart by these energies. So the most basic way to look at it is the specific area of the chart that Pisces is in. And and I would even just I would even say that you don't need to for the first thing that I walked through, all those houses, you don't need
Mhm.
to have a planet present in order for this eclipse to activate that house in your birth chart. So that first thing kind of stands, so it doesn't really, it's doesn't even really matter whether or not there's anything at 2 to 8 degrees Pisces in your chart. It's more looking at in your specific birth chart, what house is this and is this in? Because that shows you one of the life themes. The other thing we can look at is what I was just kind of lightly starting to talk about, and I hesitate to do this because we're opening up something that I will be teaching an entire course on, and so I really am trying to like. So to your point, though, so we can look at all the mutable signs because this is a
Mhm.
this is a mutable energy solar eclipse. We've got Pisces and Virgo, so we can look at what's happening in the mutable signs. But also to your point, as you said, you kind of are aware of what rules what house, and that's another way to see what might be activated for you. So that is absolutely something that you would um, potentially want to look at and be aware of. Is
Okay.
that a general enough way for me to answer that question?
Yeah, so it will be activated because of that. I wasn't sure if it really had any activation. I know that in the mutable, the Virgo, Sagittarius, Gemini, those are all in the 2 to 8 degrees, as you mentioned. So I mean, I'm looking at that, which I do have like one at 6 and one at 7, Sag, and a couple of planets. I don't have the chart in front of me right now, but yeah. But I just wasn't sure about that because of the house placement. So
House placement is another thing that I
yeah,
didn't even touch today because I feel
yeah.
like I was gonna like get everybody to hop off the roller coaster and I want everybody to stay on
Okay.
the ride.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah. It's always
No,
been,
I
yeah.
love it because you're
Yeah.
kind of helping to swing that door open, right? There's a lot here. And
Yeah.
yeah, and to get back to Carl's question, I think, when we look at, say you have something in one of those mutable signs, a planet in one of those mutable signs. So you look at that planet, you look at if it's aspecting anything. What did you traditionally when you first looked at your chart, what did you think that planet was saying to you?
You're
That's
talking,
active right now.
you're talking to me or Carlita?
Carlta, but I'm talking to everybody.
Carlita, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'll unmute.
Okay. Shaya, you have a question or or a
Yeah.
comment?
Oh, no question. I mean, I'm always trying to kind of feel into and understand especially when it's like it kind of touches on a specific area in my own chart. But so we're looking at, is there a pattern I'm ready to let go of? And then the list you gave by house. So mine's in my fifth house, kind of close to my sixth house cusp. And is it an invitation to drop into and surrender to more joy and creativity, or would I also maybe be looking at something, a pattern to let go of, like if I've been kind of in like play and joy, maybe not so much creativity, but definitely like surrendering into what brings me joy? Is the pattern to let go of the opposite of that, like where I might feel constricted or focusing too much on like things that aren't joyful and creative expressions?
Yes. Well, so let me pull this back up. Hold on a second. You said fifth house, right?
Well, it's just finding like where, and I can be overly analytical and definitely overthink things, so forgive me.
Oh no. Cheers. Okay, so
But
you
when we're looking at those houses, this description says it invites us to rediscover joy without needing it to be productive. So would the pattern I might be letting go of be that more kind of, I need to be productive all the time? It seems like maybe that now that I'm rereading this, it seems like the pattern
yeah.
that I'm invited to let go of would be like focusing always on work and having to get stuff done all the time,
Yeah. I think that
which
part of
I see as more sixth house than 11th house, but I'm
Well, I
Maybe
think
that's
fifth
not.
house, um, and I am placing my own filter over this and my understanding of what is in the collective that we're all carrying. So take me with a grain of salt. But when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how we're meant to be joyful beings and we're supposed to be always happy. And that's just something that's been like exercised out of us in a very real way, right? I mean, it's like you have to have value, you have to all these things, but like, don't just go sit in the sandbox and make sandcastles. Who does that? That's a waste of time. Does that make sense? And if we think
Mm,
about some of the things that we're really trying to relearn, and if we're trying to maybe let go of a patterning that is keeping the collective stuck in something, it is that gotta blah 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 blah, because that is what makes me worthy. And I'm saying that, like, for me it is work hard, get a lot done, check my list of stuff to do off, do it well, then I'm worthy, right? And so this is kind of saying, what if I just went and had fun and that was productive? And what if that magnetized somebody? What if I'm at this really fun concert and I bump into somebody, and just because I'm shining brightly, this person, I have a great conversation. Was I trying? No, I was absolutely just having fun. So it kind of felt like that to me, that it was more
mm,
like an invitation to let that type of joy be not just okay, but valuable.
mm,
And I think that there's something there for, I know for me, but I think for, if we think about what we're all trying to heal, is this, how do we embrace our spiritual, our energetic selves and integrate it into this structure of society that tells us the way things are? And we know darn well which things fit and which things don't, because we've lived on this planet long enough, right?
mm,
So I think that there's something about being willing to explore that and see if, and I think the universe is kind of waiting for us to trust it in that regard.
mm. And not to open up another can of worms, but if it's close to my sixth house cusp, would I kind of read both
Yeah,
houses, sort
yeah,
of?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Totally, totally. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's,
Well, it seems very on point for what's going on right now. So thank you.
oh my gosh, you're welcome. You guys are the best. I love. Would you mind emailing me? Yeah, well, what I'm gonna do is put the list of the houses in. I'm gonna email everybody tomorrow on the list and put there's the Eclipse event page, and all that's going to be, there's links on all the pages, so you're going to have access to everything that we go through today. Typically that lives within the membership portal, but because I'm doing this kind of open thing for Eclipse season, I want to make it available. So absolutely you're going to get that um information. So let's go ahead and let me see where we're at. I want to shift gears here and kind of start to talk about our herbal friend here. We've got I might be biased and overly excited about the incense stuff, but I'll tell you, you'll get to why I think it's really cool. But I first want to kind of uh just kind of invite us, whether or not you received Lincoln's Heritage Rose doesn't really matter. There's, as Eve mentioned, rose is rose, and our relationship with the plant kingdom does not require us to source it from a particular place like this property or any particular species, right? This is just about rose. So if you have dried rose, if you want to get some roses, I think that rose as an herbal ally is a really cool plant to consider during eclipse seasons. And I always think of plants as teachers because they, on the one hand, they've been what sustained us, humanity, for forever. They're our food and they're our medicine. And on some level, we know that, right? We've talked in the circle about all the ancient texts, the herbal texts that have documented the amazing things that plants can do, and how we've kind of been weaned away from that. And maybe that's also something that we're together collectively, even today, bringing energy back into, right? And fusing that with our interest in our life. And I think, roses remind us that beauty and vulnerability exist at the same time. And so to me, that feels like keeping our hearts open while moving through times of change. And that therein lies a challenge right there. right? Because that feels almost like an oxymoron. Because if we're moving through a time of change, if you think about like what happens to our energetic aura when we're out in nature, it expands. When we move through a hectic traffic situation, we kind of pull ourselves in from all the static, right? And we're living in a time where there's a little bit of static wherever you're at. But Rose is really here to remind us there's a way to keep ourselves with healthy boundaries and safe here. And I love just that metaphor of the how beautiful and how wonderful the rose smells and how it's also completely edible by humans, all the parts of it. I wouldn't say eat the thorns, but the leaves are edible and made as tea. And so, I kind of I wanted to include this again because I think this is a kind of a central idea for me with the everything is energy apothecary, and that's just the relationship with something. It continues to evolve. It's never static. I think we're kind of trained to be like, well, what do I need? Do I need a T? Do I need the hip? And not is like, what's it going to do? Is it just going to do one thing? And where do I get it from? Like we're kind of almost like trained. Like if I have a headache, I need some ibuprofen. Let me go get that. And I think that what plants are reminding us of this journey and of this larger wisdom, a body of wisdom that they express. And so, I think the fact that if we remember that the plant hasn't changed as we're moving through this experience, our relationship with it has transformed because each preparation teaches us something different. The tea might invite us to receive it internally and really feel what it feels like. How does it smell? How does it impact our physical understanding and our energy, right? And then an incense might fill the space around us and equally impact us, but in a different way. It's about the atmosphere. And I think as we endeavor to continue to work with plants, I think that it's it's totally okay to say, what is this plant good for? But I also feel like one of the things that I love, and my knowledge is maybe deep and very limited because I really like to work and live with the plant. That's how I get to know it. How do I invite the spirit of this plant into my life? Whether or not you grow it, I think there's this idea of building a relationship with it, with the plant kingdom and with the herb. And in my experience, the plants absolutely give back. Um, and so I want to kind of shift here because we're going to talk about now making cone incense. And this is something that is maybe a little bit out of the blue for me for what I offer, but it's also something that I love doing and I thought it would be the perfect time to start to integrate it. Yeah, I think cone incense is kind of neat because it's portable. As I say here, it's lasts longer instead of just crumbling some part of a plant into um an incense burner, we can really create something. And while what we're going to create today has one herb, I want you to start to think about how you could absolutely add as many magical medicinal herbs as you want to. And it's a really neat way for, I think, if we're conditioned to, have a sage bundle, have a stick of a particular kind of Palo Santo or wood, right? And this is another way that we can make something that I think is so neat because it's so accessible and it opens up all the herbs for us to make. And I want to just introduce two ways that you can do this today. One is the traditional way, and this is it's informed by the Japanese culture, and it involves using mako powder. And I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not going to land on that one because I really want us to be able to do something today if we feel like it. And you'll see the second method I'm calling the kitchen method, and that involves cornstarch, which I chose because I was thinking that's hopefully something that is more accessible. But I will say that Mako powder is available for like 15 to 20 bucks on online stores. And it's what the Japanese have been using to make incense for generations. And what it does is it acts as a natural binder and it also helps the cones burn super evenly. And if you really wanted to get into making incense, I would say if you try the cornstarch method and it works, it might be fun to get some Mako powder because you'll find that the consistency and the durability of the cones last. But let's kind of just really switch. And there's going to be in the ritual section, I'll get to that. I have more in-depth information versus on these slides, but for the purposes of time and just general interest, I'm going to keep it light and then let you guys know that there's how much specifically that you might want to use. I'll share that with you. So the Mako method, it involves there's a tree called the Machilius genus, and it's been used by the Japanese for centuries. And I mentioned it's both a binder And it's also part of the fuel that helps the incense burn evenly. And so the process for both is straightforward. Turn, you're going to either use the cornstarch powder or the Mako powder. You're going to get your coffee grinder. You're going to take your rose petals. You're going to turn them into powder. And then you're going to add some water. Warm water works best. You're going to get it to the consistency of, for me, what is mostly like cornmeal, like a dry cornmeal, and then you're going to roll it in your hands and make a little cone. And this is the Mako powder. This is not rose incense, but I'll share with you the incense that I made this morning. This is the cornstarch recipe. And for cornstarch, you're doing the same thing. You're going to process somehow. You really want to get the rose petals and or any other herb that you might feel inspired to add to your incense mix and get those into the same kind of powder form that is the equivalent kind of powder to the Mako powder or the cornstarch. Caveat that the other thing I love to add, you could also add frankincense powder. And if you were liked Palo Santo, I'm almost done with a resource. It's an ebook, but for those of you guys who are members of the Lunar Herbal Alchemy Circle, I've got a nice little set of recipes for if you like this type of stuff. And I love making incense. And so I'm just going to just kind of say, for the purposes of our gathering right now, you're going to grind it, you're going to mix it, you're going to add water, you're going to shape it, you're going to allow it to dry. And the only caveat that I would say is that I made these little guys. This is just rose petals and cornstarch. And you can make these cute little cones, right? And say, oh, the only thing you're going to do is I've made these and they're going to take about 3 days to dry. I've made these with cornstarch. If you use cornstarch, you will notice that they'll kind of start to look a little bit more crumbly. The stuff that we usually buy, if it's 100% natural cone incense, it's usually Mako powder. There's a lot of other synthetic stuff that's out there that people try to sell you. I would say for the health of our lungs, see if you can get Mako powder or something like cornstarch, just because it'll be a lot safer to use. But I love this stuff because for me, especially if we're talking about an energetic transit or a ritual or an eclipse, like the smoke that fills the air of somewhere, even if you're outside, is absolutely part of the medicine and the energy and the raising of an energy for a ritual. And so I love it because it's just such an easy layer to add that for me is it's something that I can say, I can do, and then I can viscerally smell it. And for me, it just checks so many of those boxes. So I wanted to just kind of share that, take it or leave it. This is the first time I've talked about incense, I think, this eclipse season, this season. So does anybody have any questions about that? I could show you where they're at in the membership portal if you'd like. Eve says yes. Okay, cool. Well, then let me go ahead and really get quick.
So where are they in the membership portal, and I can look it up there?
Yeah, let me go show you right now. Thank you for asking. Okay, so here's your Lunar Herbal Alchemy page. We're going to go to
Herbal preparations.
Herbal preparations forum. If you go
Okay.
here, you'll find, and the ebook the will be there soon. But here's creating Lincoln's rose, and I will tell you that. And here's all the other stuff. But if I put 2 tablespoons rose to 1 tablespoon cornstarch in the recipe, that's going to give you at least 4 big cones. So you could easily half that, but you're going to want a 1-to-2 ratio. You'll see that of herbs to the binder is essentially what you're going to want to do. And then the same thing if we go to the rituals and astrology materials here, beyond the info and everybody who's not a member, this is the wonderful time when you guys are going to get some of these resources, and I'm going to make that available. So don't worry for right now, and hopefully it inspires you to want to join what we're doing. But here's the Pisces lunar eclipse ritual that you can use the rose tea. If you have the little looking glass, the crystal ball, and then if you have the incense, there's a ritual that you can do as you walk through working with rose for this eclipse. For the sake of time, I think I'm gonna leave that there so that we can get to meditation. How does that sound? Lucia says this is so cool. Thanks, You're welcome, Lucia. I'm excited. And if you're interested in this stuff, I shouldn't say the little ebook because that makes it sound like something completely insignificant. This thing that I've been working on that is my own experience of what incense I like to create and why. And hopefully I'll be able to make some and put some online for sale. But this is something you can do for real cheap at home. And it's also a really neat way if you've got some herbs that are maybe a little old or compromised. This is a really great way to use them, right? Because you're just burning them, right? So I always love to use all my herbs, even if they are 4 years old. I'll find something to do with them. So I feel like that's kind of a nice broadens our ability to work with the herbs. So with that, let's go ahead and if you guys are okay with it, let's get to our meditation for today. And yeah, so let's go ahead and take a moment to ignore the barking chihuahua. I'm sorry, I feel like this always happens to me right at the end of so you're laughing. I'm glad somebody finds this funny. So let's go ahead and just begin. We're going to find a place where we can just where we're at, close our eyes. If you want to turn your camera off, go ahead. But begin by coming into your physical vessel and feel that your shoulders are stacked over your hips. Allow your hands to just sort of gently rest on your lap. And go ahead and take just a nice, slow breath in through your nose and release that breath through your mouth. Again, breathing in and just allow that breath to be an invitation to come fully into your body. And as you exhale, start to let the exhale be the metaphor for letting go. Few more rounds of breath, just like that, just slightly deeper, breathing in through the nose and releasing through the mouth. And see if for these next few moments in time, you can simply open yourself up to receive energy, to receive whatever it is that you need to support you during this eclipse and this eclipse season. And now imagine yourself standing outside beside a really still lake. Maybe it's a mountain lake, somewhere where you can see the full moon. And the light of the moon is reflected on the water of the lake. And feel the coolness of the air. And since you're outside, potentially in the mountains at night, just notice how quiet and peaceful the energy is. And if there were any ripples in the water surface of the lake, just look out and notice the water itself has become completely still and present and calm. And just notice that the surface of the water is now almost like a mirror. It just reflects the energy and the light of the moon in this pristine and perfect way. And as the moon is shining above you, just open to the energy of Pisces as the moon is shining above you in Pisces at this moment of time. And Pisces reminds us that wisdom often arrives through stillness rather than through trying or effort. And just start to take in the energy of the water that's before you. As you breathe in its stillness and its calm. Breathe in this gentle, sort of peaceful energy. And as you breathe out, let that be a release, known or unknown, whatever's ready to go. Breathing in again, just take in, it doesn't have to be in words, just take in the energy of the water of the lake that is reflecting the light of the moon. and breathe out. And now, in addition to the water of the lake, allow the light of the moon to begin to just sort of communicate with you. As you're standing outside, maybe you can send roots down into the earth. Imagine you're standing barefoot. And you can open up the crown of your head and imagine that you're starting to receive energy and information from the stars and the moon included. And then go ahead and just bring your awareness to the center of your chest, to your heart center. And just start to imagine this sort of soft golden light that glows inside you. And see if you can start to sense that this light is ever present. Maybe it's just a soft, warm glow. It doesn't have to be impressive or huge. This is the light of your heart. And your consciousness carries power. So as you're directing your awareness to your heart light begins to respond. And just start to imagine and experience that this light is beginning to brighten and maybe expand a little bit in your chest. And then also begin to experience and understand that you are deeply rooted, connected to the earth, and you are also connected to the stars. The crown of your head is open and your heart is open. So this light from the moon is coming into your crown of your head, it's coming into your heart. And maybe start to entertain or maybe even fully receive this notion that your heart can remain open. Maybe the theme is that it's safe for you to remain open, your heart to remain open. Maybe it doesn't even need to be safe. Maybe it's just that you're really feeling like that's what you want to embody, that your heart is open. And now bring your awareness to the space between your eyebrows, to your third eye at the center of your skull. And just imagine there's this indigo colored orb of light that's right in the middle of your brain. And it's sort of this luminous blue color, like the night sky when it's lit up by the moon itself. And as you connect to your third eye, see if you can start to tap into or entertain this idea that as you're connecting to your intuition, you're not trying to see anything. Instead, you're simply available for new understandings, for deeper knowing. And invite the light of the moon into your third eye. And as you begin to receive this light, not only into your heart, but into your third eye, see if you can begin to just really trust that your intuition doesn't need to speak through words, that sometimes it can just be a vibration, a feeling, some quiet sense of knowing. And just allow the moon to give to your third eye and to your heart and to your entire being, whatever energetic signature is perfect for you today as we're preparing for the eclipse. You can do this again later as the eclipse is exact, but maybe you can even start to feel that what's coming through from the moon is not entirely foreign to you or outside of you. but you already have this wisdom within you. And that perhaps what's happening is that it's simply being activated, as if it's something, the energy is resonating in a new frequency now. And your third eye and your heart are just sort of lighting up to some aspect of wisdom that is already within you. And just start to visualize that there's this silver stream of moonlight that is descending into your crown and into your third eye and into your heart. And actually, it's traveling down from your crown into your third eye. It's moving through your throat and into your heart. And just imagine it's continuing down through your body. And as this light moves into you, it's bringing stillness and clarity and perspective and wisdom. And just feel your whole self illuminated with this light. The light of the moon, but also just the energy of this eclipse. And maybe even imagine an infinity loop that encompasses your heart and your third eye and crosses over at your throat. And that these third eye and heart are inextricably interconnected. That our intuition is as much from our third eye as it is from our heart. And that maybe there doesn't need to be any separation between those two. And just sit here for a couple quiet breaths in this energy, receiving any wisdom. But it feels to me more like an activation of something you already know, a vibration that's already familiar. And now, as you're standing outside, just looking up at the moon, maybe entertain this question: what is quietly asking to be released? Allow whatever arises to arise. No judgment, no analysis. Just notice what is quietly asking to be released. And as we're making space by releasing, there's instantaneously room for us to plant a seed. So the next question that follows on its heels is, what quality is asking to grow within me? What quality is asking to grow within me? Maybe it's compassion or peace or joy, but let it be something entirely unique to you. And as this eclipse is shining on the waters of Pisces, shining on the waters of this mountain lake, imagine that you're placing both your release and your intention on the surface of that lake. And just watch as they begin to gently drift across the water. You don't need to push them, you don't need to hold on to them. Maybe there's a slight breeze that just guides them to wherever they belong. And then really see if you can start to receive and feel that you can trust the unfolding. That you can trust yourself, you can trust your heart, you can trust your intuition, and you can trust the universe. You can trust what's unfolding. And you can trust that you'll be in the flow. And with that, go ahead and take another breath and just start to bring your awareness back into the place and space that you're at right now. Maybe feel your body connected to the chair or the earth beneath you. Maybe move your fingers and toes. And just slowly prepare to come back to close this gathering. Thank you guys for being here. I just want to send an invitation for anybody who feels called. We have twice monthly live gatherings with the Herbal Alchemy Circle. The herbs are grown here. There's astrology and ritual. And as I mentioned, I'm building a little library of books and resources for folks within that community. If you happen to want to join right now, there's an annual option where you get 3 months free. You'll get a copy of the Ritual Apothecary that's going to be finished, hopefully, by the time the eclipse is in effect. That's my goal for myself. And yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a part of this. And may this eclipse help you to release as well as to create space for what's ready to be there. I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Happy eclipse. I will also just share that for those of you guys that are members and you're a member of the extra ritual peace gathering, I have a really special thing to share with you next month. When I was in Palo Alto teaching yoga, I had these Tibetan monks come through and they did one of those sand mandalas on University Avenue at my yoga studio. And I've loosely maintained touch with one of the families that helped house them. And anyway, I just got these mala beads and they gave me a really great deal. So for those of you guys that are here, I love giving stuff within this circle that I'm really, really, really jazzed about. This is something I'm really, really, really jazzed about. So those of you guys, and if anybody is a part of that membership and you just want to make sure you have one of these, even if you're the basic tier, let me know because these are really cool. And these came from some awesome Tibetan monks. So not that it's about the stuff, but sometimes the stuff is cool. So thank you guys. Lots of love. Happy eclipse. And I will see you all. Gosh, I don't know. I'll see you soon. You'll hear from me tomorrow with all the resources that we went through today so that you can use them. So, all right. Bright blessings. Tons of love.
Thank,
You're
Thank you.
you're welcome, guys.
Thank you.
thank you.
Happy
Yeah.
Thanks for
eclipse.
being here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.